Intellectual property is a key aspect for economic development. Craig Venter. On today's episode, I'm going to discuss intellectual property. Don't tune me out now. This is not going to be a huge legal discussion, but we are going to discuss the economic impact that this can have on your business, i.e., how IP can greatly impact the money you make or lose. Welcome to the Stitched for Success podcast, where we are teaching business and life lessons that will help you launch, grow, or scale your creative business. I am Monica Allen, and I'm a wife, mom, daughter, entrepreneur, author, friend, lifelong learner, and host of this podcast. For over 8 years, I was stuck in corporate and dreamt of escaping. Creating a side hustle with just $700 and having taken the leap over 15 years ago, we have since grown multiple six-figure and seven-figure brands. Being an entrepreneur for over 18 years has afforded me many successes and a few failures. I want to share those with you so you can grow and be successful in your business. There are a couple of things going on that has had intellectual property on my mind. First, I am currently listening to the book Play Bigger. In the book, the authors talk about Elon Musk and Tesla Motors. Well, back in early 2019, Elon made Tesla's patents public. So Tesla's patents are now open source for any other car manufacturers to use and develop electric cars. He did this for the good of the electric car industry and ultimately the good of the planet as a whole. I think this is admirable because most people and companies hold tight to their intellectual property and fight tooth and nail to protect it. Secondly, the past month or so has been somewhat stressful for Ethan and I. We have been going back and forth with one of the organizations that we are licensed with. Licensed meaning we are allowed to use their trademarked logos on gear that we create. Well, we've been going back and forth over their contract and products that we have had on one of our sites with their trademark logos for years. So much so that we eventually had to get our own attorney involved. Well, if you have ever had the pleasure, I say that sarcastically, of working with an attorney, and our attorney is great, so don't get me wrong, but you know that it can get very expensive. However, it can be necessary to make sure that your interest is protected and to have a middleman involved to help remove the emotion. So I thought today we would talk more about intellectual property, the pros and cons of being the licensor versus the licensee, and the economic impact that intellectual property can have on your business. First, what is intellectual property, or IP as some people call it? Intellectual property is a category of property that includes intangible creations of the human intellect. Most common intellectual property things are copyrights, patents, trademarks, and trade secrets. Most of us have heard of those in some capacity. But there are other types, and some countries recognize more than others. But here in the United States, we have the U.S. Patent and Trade Office or Trademark Office, and we also have the U.S. Copyright Office. So you may ask, well, what's the difference between a trademark, a copyright, and a patent? And I want to briefly go over that because some people don't know. Some people do, of course. And I just actually had a conversation with a client that was in earlier today, and he wasn't quite sure where to get his trademark done. He thought he could get it done here and that it was an actual Georgia-based thing, but it's not. It is in the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office. So trademarks are a name, a slogan, or a logo that distinguishes your product or service from a competitor. A copyright is anything that you create that's original. This could be a book, a song, an article, a piece of art, software, and then a patent protects something that you invent and how that invention is made. So there's a great chart on LegalZoom.com that you can reference. It makes it very clear on which is which, and I have included that link in the show notes. One of our companies is primarily built on licensing other organizations or companies' trademarks. These organizations that we work with and license their trademarks to sell items to their members either collect a royalty on each item sold or they collect an annual licensing fee. The pro of this type of arrangement is that it can be mutually beneficial for both parties, especially when it is viewed as a partnership. The companies doing the licensing, also known as the licensor, can have some really cool products available with their logo without having the expense of creating them or holding inventory. Think about Disney. They have pajamas, toys, t-shirts, bookends, and a large variety of products with Mickey Mouse or Marvel characters on them. They are not making all of these items. They are licensing the likeness of Mickey or Iron Man to a company who makes pajamas or bookends. On the flip side of that, however, for those of us using another company's IP, if they make changes or decide they don't want you to use something or don't want to license their trademarks at all, then you lose. You can lose money on inventory or on future business. That would be the con. It is possible to be successful licensing someone else's trademarks, but ultimately, they then control your business to some degree. Now, if you have been listening to this podcast for a while, you know that I often say it is imperative that you own it. Whatever it is, you should own it. I think this is the same for intellectual property. Owning your own intellectual property or IP can make your business more lucrative or even more attractive. Perhaps you have a copyright or a trademark that you're able to license, or it may just help you stand out from your competition. We have trademarked several logos and taglines. For instance, our tagline at Zeus's Closet is, "We're like a tattoo shop for your clothes." We have trademarked that with the trademark office, and we often get compliments on that phrase because it makes sense for our business, and no one else can use that. If they do, they are then infringing upon our trademark, and we would have to take action on that. We also hold copyrights for some of our artwork that we've created over the years. We do not license to others, but owning these items are a pro, not a con. With us knowing that we don't license our artwork out to others, we've often been caught by surprise when we'll venture onto another website and see some of our artwork that has been taken basically and put on someone else's website. So now with owning your own intellectual property, you have to be prepared to defend it if someone uses your copyright or trademark logo, phrase, or tagline without permission. When we launched our first website, we found one of our graphics being used by another website. They literally took the entire graphic that included me in the image. We had to send a cease and desist letter to them for them to remove it, which they did promptly. And most companies will remove something once they know that they are infringing on someone else's trademarks. The con to this comes into play if and when you have to get your attorney involved to protect your trademarks or copyrights. A friend of mine has a company where she licenses the artwork of a variety of artists. I think her business is so cool. Have you ever wondered where those beautiful designs on your bed sheets or the border of the plates that you purchased or your planner comes from? These designs are often licensed from artists for the company to use on a variety of products. And this year, we launched our clothing line success program in Zeus's Closet. In this program, we have clients who have created some pretty cool, pretty unique clothing brands with some very interesting stories behind them. We encourage them to be sure to check their brand's trademark availability and get it registered with the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office as soon as possible to ensure that they own that IP. I have not yet ventured into having to deal with patents, but I someday hope to invent a product that is so unique that I need a patent. And when that day comes, I'll be sure to let you know. Again, what Elon Musk has done is wonderful for the earth, and I truly think that they have by far created the best looking, best driving electric vehicle on the market. So they are an industry leader. They have an advantage that those to follow are far from catching up to, even with them using Tesla's open source patents. Intellectual property protection here in the United States encourages inventors, artists, individuals, and companies to create and innovate. This spurs economic development throughout our country. It can make things somewhat litigious from time to time, but I guess in some ways that's economic growth as well. I encourage you to create and establish your own IP as you start and grow your business. And I do caution you when using someone else's intellectual property to read the contract thoroughly. Have your own attorney review and adjust and make changes where you can in the contract. and know that if that contract changes or if something about the partnership changes, then that can impact your business. So have a backup plan, be willing to pivot, and you want to just recognize the impact that losing the use of that IP can have on your business. I really do appreciate you for joining me. And just before I go, I want you to remember the Become Your Own Boss 21-day Quickstart program that's available, especially for our aspiring entrepreneurs. The program provides for a 21-day checklist and modules to get your business launched. And again, I have a club on Clubhouse by the same name, Become Your Own Boss. I host a room every Thursday at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So if you have an opportunity to stop by the room, please do. We have a variety of topics that are there to help you grow, expand, and be as successful as possible in your business. Thanks so much for joining me on this episode. I'm grateful that you took the time to listen. Please let's continue our conversation. You can email me. The email address is stitchforsuccess@gmail.com. You can also follow me on Instagram, direct message me there, or just comment underneath the inspiration for this week's podcast episode. Please take some time, if you don't mind, to rate and review the podcast if you have not already. And now the podcast is available on Amazon as well as Pandora. So please share it with a friend. Ask Alexa to play it for you. And as always, I'm so grateful. Thank you so much for listening. Take care and have a great one.